Okay, Larry, now I'm paying 175. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Chamber, citizens of Homestead. This is our first really public introduction of our yearly legislative agenda. It's about 54 pages long. It outlines what we are asking our state legislators for. What we ask is not always what we get, but you got to ask and hope that you will receive. Of course, everybody wants to know why do you have lobbyists and this and that. I have with me tonight one of our lobbyists, and we have 4 lobbyists, 2 in Tallahassee and 2 in Washington, D.C. And this is Danielle Espino from Becker and Polikoff, and they're an outstanding firm. When we hit the ground in Tallahassee, they were right there waiting on us, and they have already set up all of our appointments to go see our state reps, to go see our state senators that represent our area. It's very helpful, and it's almost like without them, you don't get in as quick or as easy. So it's important. The state reps and senators do like to see your face once a year. The trip is very worthwhile. They put a project, face with a project, and they seem to work harder. With us this evening is our engineer, Julio Bria, and also with us is your name again? Is the director of our power plant, and I got a brain block, Barbara Jordan. Barbara's going to talk about the energy side, and if you all know that the power plant's been around for many years, and this year or the next coming year or 2, we are going to work diligently in Washington, D.C. to bring home some new equipment instead of cranking up those antiques that we have and polluting the air the way that we do sometimes. So with that said, I'm going to let Julio Abria move forward, and Barbara, and take it away, guys, and let's let the public know what we do for 3 months up in Tallahassee, back and forth, and trying to bring home the bacon to do good things for Homestead. Thank you, Julio.
Good afternoon, Mayor and public. What we wanted to do in the next hour or so is basically go over the request that we're submitting to the state for this year's legislative session. We are submitting a total of 40 projects. There are 2 that deal with our general fund, 4 from Public Works, 22 from the Electric Utilities Department, 4 from Parks and Recs, 3 from our Information and Technology Department, and 2 from the Police Department. We go through this every year, and basically the opportunities for us to basically meet with them and see what we can get in terms of grants to help us out with some of these important projects. I'll start off with some of the projects, and then Barbara will join in and do the ones related to the electric department. But the first one that we wanted to submit was basically, this is a support of a new legislation regarding reckless driving. Basically, this new law would allow any person who's driving a vehicle with disregard to safety or for a person or property to be guilty of reckless driving. We feel that that's an important new legislation, and of course the city is supporting it. The next project that we wanted to submit to them was the monies for renovation of the historic Seminole Theater. Seminole Theater has been around for many years, and we are hopefully trying to open up open up the theater again. So we're asking for $3.5 million for that purpose. This would allow us to basically renovate the building to today's building standards and be able to operate the theater once again in the downtown area. The next one that I wanted to discuss was mass transit system to Biscayne National Park and Everglades National Park. As you know, we do have a trolley system that we use in the city, and the idea of this project is basically to enhance our mass transit, basically our trolley service to reach the national parks. We're thinking of doing it during the weekend days, which would allow people to get on the trolley in the downtown area and have a direct route to the either Everglades National Park and Biscayne National Park to be able to enjoy the parks and return to the city without having to use their own vehicles or their own form of transportation. The next one that I wanted to discuss, these are having to do with the Public Works Department. It's what is called the SSES, which is the Sewer System Evaluation and Repairs. These are studies and actual repairs of our sewer system in order to improve our capacity basically throughout the city. What this project entails is basically the renovation and repair or replacement of old aging sewer lines which are leaking and therefore allowing groundwater to enter into our wastewater treatment flow, thereby reducing our capacity at the plant with water that really doesn't need to be treated. We're asking for $3.2 million for that project. That project is actually an ongoing project that we're working on now, but this amount of money would allow us to basically complete the whole city. And the idea is to reduce our flows going to the plant by about 40%. Another project of importance is a telemetry system at our wastewater treatment plant and our water treatment plant as well. We're asking for $5 million for this project. And basically what this is our plant and also the regulations from the State Department for Health and also the Environmental Protection Agency basically require us to keep not only records but also 24/7 control and data acquisition from our plants. Basically, it allows us to operate our plants from remote sites and gives our operators more abilities to handle other operating duties, and at the same time the plant operating on an automated sort of fashion. So we're asking for $5 million for that project. The next one of importance is the wastewater treatment plant expansion. As we are right now, our treatment plant is at capacity. Any excess flow that we do get to the plant that we produce in the city that the plant can't treat actually goes to the county, and we have to pay a rate per gallon for that treatment. The purpose of this project is basically to expand the capacity of the plant to take us to build out. In other words, to be able to handle all the flow that will be treated, that will be produced in the city of Homestead without having to rely on the county as a backup. This project is a large amount of money. It's $40 million, but the project, if we do get the funding for it, would allow us to be totally independent in terms of our treatment capacity and collection of our sewer system. The next couple of projects have to do with the Parks Department. The first one is $3.5 million for a new park in the eastern part of the city. This park basically would include, a small dog park, large dog parks, tot playgrounds, youth playgrounds, pavilions, restrooms, walking trails, etc. Basically, in the same fashion as we have the parks on the west side of the town. We're asking for $3.5 million for this project, and basically it is to serve the east side of the city. Actually, the whole city, but it's going to be located in the east side of the city. The next one having to do with parks is basically an improvement to the Mayor Roscoe Warren Park, which is the addition of lights for the soccer fields. This is a $1.5 million project. Right now, we do have 4 soccer fields in that park, but cannot be used at night, obviously, because there are no lights. These lights would allow the leagues and the public to use the facilities at night throughout the year as well, and it's $1.5 million for that project. The lights would be state-of-the-art. They'd be the types that you see at all municipal type of events that have sporting events. So they are quite hefty in price. The next one is improvements to the Harris Field football field. The purpose of this project will be to replace the existing football field with an artificial turf. This, of course, it will cost upfront about $850,000, and that's what we're asking for. But in the long term, it would reduce the amount of operating and expenses that we now have to deal with in terms of maintenance of the facilities, cutting the lawns, etc., striping, and all that. This would eliminate all that by creating a permanent surface for football teams to play in. The next one, also having to do with parks, it's the Biscayne Everglades Greenway Bike Trail. This has been in the works for many years, and basically the history of this project or the purpose of it, or the goal, is to connect the two, again, Biscayne National Park and Everglades National Park, with a bike trail. The bike trail would obviously cross through the city of Homestead as well, as we are right between the two parks. This is a $3 million project, and it would provide a 42-mile bike trail with signs and amenities, resting areas, etc., which bikers could enjoy and walkers could also enjoy, which would span between the two parks that border our city. The next three projects are having to deal with the Information and Technology Department of the city. And these are basically to improve the way we operate on a day-to-day basis for the most part. The first one is $500,000 we're asking for technology upgrades, which would basically harden the city's existing data and communication center, basically in terms of hurricanes and those type of situations, would allow for backup systems that would protect the data that we store in our daily operations of the government. The next one, it's basically replacement of workstations throughout the city. We have about 150 user workstations which are now reaching the end of their 5-year life cycle. And what this monies will do, which is approximately $350,000, which we're asking for, would basically allow us to replace these aging workstations with new ones and up-to-date software technology. And the last one, having to do with the ITS department, is the replacement of the software system that we use that basically operates everything that we do in the city, from terms of customer service, HR, payroll, purchasing. So basically all the operations that we do within the city are operated or are facilitated by a software package, which it's all integrated and all works together, so that all our different departments can work together on this. And again, the software that we're using now it's becoming outdated. This will bring us up to date, and it's about $260,000 that we're asking for that. Now the next 22 projects are for the electric department, and Barbara Quiñones will fill you in on the details on those projects.
Thank you, Julio, and good afternoon, Mayor and members of the public. As Julio mentioned, we have 22 projects for the electric utility that will be brought before the legislature, or talked to with our legislative representatives, looking for some funding to support these projects. The first project is for $200,000 for work on a data collection network whereby we could gather information from the electric meters out in the field and have a better understanding of when we have power outages and if we have any problems with the quality of the power that's out in the field. The next project is $1,350,000 for automated switches on all of our main trunk lines. We currently have automated switches installed on 2 of our main trunk lines, and this additional money would help us accelerate the project to get the automated switches on all of the main trunk lines. The automated switches allow for rapid restoration if there is a power outage where the bulk of the customers on that main trunk line are switched around to another trunk line and they don't experience an outage when we have a problem with some of the facilities. The next project is $250,000 for work management software, and this would allow us to better manage the projects that are handled through the electric utility. Our software at this point in time is a little bit antiquated, and this would help us to be much more efficient. The next three projects are all for new construction, $115,000 for new streetlight construction to install additional streetlights out there for the public. And the next project is $500,000 for new overhead construction, and that's construction on the poles. And then we have $1.9 million for new underground construction, and that is for undergrounding facilities where they're not on the poles, they're buried facilities. Now the next projects are around upgrading and improving our infrastructure. We have $250,000 for upgrades and improvements to equipment in the substations. We have $421,000 for upgrading and improving the metering system. And then the next project is $1.5 million for regulation compliance for the generators that we have in the power plant. And this is, the mayor mentioned some of the emissions that come from our generators. And we have recently installed equipment to minimize our emissions, minimizes the emissions by over 90% of what was previously being emitted. And we have upgraded 3 of our engines at this point in time, and we still have a number of engines that need to be retrofitted with this equipment. So the $1.5 million is to work towards getting all of the engines where the emissions are minimal, the engines being the generators. Again, back with infrastructure improvements, we have $200,000 for circuit breaker replacements. And these are very, very large circuit breakers that are located in our substations. The next project is $140,000 for replacement of relay equipment. And the replacement of this equipment would help to minimize the impact of power outages, and we would be moving towards new technology with microprocessor relays. The next project is $100,000 for upgrade to our engineering software and our GIS database. This database is where we store all the information related to the electrical facilities throughout the city, from the generators all the way down to the meters. We have all of that information stored in a database, and this is an upgrade for that database. The next project is $18,000 for upgraded switches for our substations. The existing switches are aging and they're nearing end of life, and we prefer to replace the equipment prior to it reaching end of life. And so that's what that project would entail. The next project is $400,000 for storm hardening. Julio mentioned some storm hardening for some of the other facilities. We have also been actively installing larger, stronger poles since Hurricane Wilma. So this is just a continuation of that project. We've been doing that again ever since Wilma, and we plan to continue doing that until we have surveyed all the poles in our service territory. And the next project is linked to the storm hardening as well, and it covers the work necessary to make other repairs to the system so that we have a system capable of withstanding a level 3 hurricane. The next project is a feasibility study for $30,000 and looking at our power generation. The bulk of the costs in the electric utility are for power generation. It accounts for 60 to 70% of our total cost. And we are going out for a feasibility study to look at ways that we could reduce our cost per generation. That cost is then, of course, passed along to the customers. So anytime we can reduce this very large cost of power generation, it makes an impact on all of the customers. Everyone sees a reduction in their power bill. So this study is extremely critical. And once we have that study completed and we have information as to what are the most economical ways to proceed with power generation, we would move into the next project, which is $9 million. And that's where we would go ahead and implement the recommendations from the study so that we could get some less expensive power generation either through contracts or through on-site generation that's much more efficient than what we currently have in place. The next project is $150,000 for land acquisition for a new substation. As the city continues to expand, we need additional electrical facilities. And just looking ahead, we know we need to identify a parcel of land where we could place a substation in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's for acquisition of land to support that substation. The next project is upgrades to the Homestead Plaza, and that's for $200,000. We've got some vintage and unique electrical underground facilities at the Homestead Plaza, and because of the uniqueness of the equipment and the age of it, we have some challenges whenever there are power outages at the plaza, and we'd like to upgrade that equipment to something that's more current and easier to work on. The next project is $1.9 million for an additional circuit tie with FPL. We currently have one circuit tie at the high voltage level with Florida Power and Light, and we would like to have a second tie for a contingency. In the event we lose the first tie, then we'd like to have the second tie as a backup where we could quickly restore any power that we'd lost because of the first tie being unavailable. The next project is $130,000 to replace and upgrade small wire. We have some wire that's been in place for many years in the city, and while it's serving a purpose and allowing the flow of electricity, it doesn't allow us the flexibility to reconfigure our circuits because the wire is only capable of sustaining a certain amount of electricity. So we would like to upgrade wire in a few locations where the wire is smaller than what we would need if we had to reconfigure the circuits. And the last electrical item is, oh, I'm sorry, no, I can cover the next one too. We've got a project for $100,000 for placing some of our overhead facilities underground. And when the facilities are placed underground, they have less exposure to the elements, and they're also aesthetically more pleasing. And so we continuously look to see what facilities we can place underground reasonably, because the cost of undergrounding is the issue that we face. So we have a project to place some of our circuits underground. And then I'll cover the next item, which is just some state support for the continuance of the tax-exempt status for municipal bonds. There are some efforts in progress that would eliminate or limit the use of tax-exempt bonds by state and local governments. And we would like for the state to support that we don't lose that tax-exempt status for municipal bonds. And I guess with that, I'll turn it back over to Julio for the remaining items.
We're almost done. The next two items are basically in support of the business and the workforce environment within the city of Homestead. The first one we're asking for is $500,000 for a workforce investment program. Basically what it is this project consists of an investment program that will provide funding for workforce education, re-education programs at the regional post-secondary education institutions. And basically what this is basically to promote the workforce here within the city to continue thriving for improvement. The next one is, again, $500,000, and this one is a job growth incentive program. And what this one targets is the businesses within the city that provide employment for high skill or high wage jobs. And again, the idea is to promote these type of businesses with direct cash incentives for their efforts in employing high skill labor within the city. And the last two are related to the police department. We're asking for $500,000 for technology upgrades. This is similar to the same request that we're doing for the rest of the city in terms of improvements to the software programs having to do with communications, data storage, data sharing, and compiling of information. So that's $500,000 for that one. And the last project that we're asking for funding is $500,000. Again, it's technology upgrades, but these having to do with the city's command center. I'm basically bringing that up to date along with the mobile command center that we have in order to be able to address emergency situations in a more efficient and more up-to-date fashion. And that's basically the end of all the projects that we're asking for. It's a long list. We're hoping that they hear us up there, and wish us good luck.
Thank you so much, Julio, Brea, and Barbara Quinones. Thank you both for taking time out of your busy schedule to share this with us. And I think it's very important that our chamber that's here today, our Chamber of Commerce, and of course, most definitely our citizens, are aware of what we are doing for you, are attempting to do for you in Tallahassee. And when Tallahassee's finished, the trip will be to Washington, D.C. With the real big boys to talk about bigger projects and hopefully bigger dollars. I'm going to ask Daniel Espino to say a few words from Becker and Polikoff now. They are one of our 3 or 4 lobbyists that we have, 2 at the state level and 2 at the federal level. So, Daniel, if you'll just bring us up to speed on what's happening right now in Tallahassee as we speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Dan Espino from Becker and Polikoff. I'm an attorney handling primarily government, land use, and development. The 2 lobbyists, their faces that you're used to seeing, Rich Candia and Jose Puentes, are members of our group. They're in Tallahassee right now, certainly serving you as well as the other clients that we have in the firm. I had a law school professor of mine that said nothing is safe when the legislature's in session, and certainly is the case this year. The session is off to a feverish pace, although it's interestingly enough, both chambers have not submitted, have not filed as much legislation as there was last year. That doesn't mean that they're not working hard. As a matter of fact, they're working through bills much quicker than they have in the past. A positive note is that there seems to be the desire to fund a lot more infrastructure projects in Tallahassee. Of course, some of the ones that were mentioned. A lot of cities are putting in for projects who are up there fighting for Homestead share of the dollars. But it's an encouraging thing in comparison to the previous years where it's been a lot of closed doors in our faces for those things. Of course, big ticket items have been the dominant part of the conversation. Ethics reform, pension reform, education funding, and Medicaid expansion have dominated the conversation. A couple points. Today, the Senate Appropriations General Government Subcommittee heard member projects, including Homestead. In the House side, it's a little bit different. The House is requiring each representative member of a municipality to present those projects themselves. That'll be coming very soon, and we're coordinating with your representative to do that. Pension reform is on the House floor today, and the Senate version is to follow. I'll tell you, the versions are not similar, and so there's going to be negotiations as they work through, and probably as both they get passed and have to be reconciled. Neither has met the city's total needs, and the approach by the municipalities will need to be defined in terms of that pension reform. The Senate has decided to offer its own plan for insofar as Medicaid is concerned. We know the governor had a rendition of the plan. Senator Negron has provided something that has much of the same components that the governor has provided, but a couple key differences. There's a larger participation of private providers and a more defined end date. That would be beneficial to the city, especially where the controlled expansion of the plans were implemented. Next week is a slow week, of course, as Passover and Good Friday are observed, but after that it's going to be a sprint. It's going to be very, very busy thereafter. The city will need to present its water projects in the House, as I mentioned, thereafter, and also working to discuss opportunities with the track. Those have to be fully vetted, and any negative elements of it will have to be vetted in order to be presented without attack. So that's it in a nutshell. A lot of stuff goes on in Tallahassee. We will be up there for date days, which are April 3rd through the 4th. I will also be up there along with Rich and Jose, helping coordinate those meetings as well as facilitating new ones as they become available insofar as these projects are concerned. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Daniel. And we are just about out of time, but if anybody's biting right at the bit to ask 1 or 2 questions, we got about 5 minutes. So if you heard as we went through that package, it went in anything from new football, AstroTurf to major replacement in the power plant. So if you got anything that's right on the tip of your tongue, please raise your hand and we'll answer it for you. That's what I like. I like a city that's really, it's with me, behind me. All right. So I'm glad you came. Please go out, tell your friends, tell your neighbors that we have a big package with some really sharp people in Tallahassee pulling for us, and we will put the face with the project here on April 3rd. So thank you very much, and if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to call my office or call my assistant, either one, 305-224-4433. Thank you very much.